used to be in the Darren School District in Connecticut during my middle and high school days. It was a wealthier district, and a lot of field trips were offered to the students. I was a member of the chorus, and every year we'd take at least 1 or 2 optional field trips as a class. The year in question, in which I was a sophomore, we took a trip to Woodloch Pines Resort in Pennsylvania. The bus ride there took a few hours. I was with my friend Ethan. We were going to be sharing a room. From the moment we got there, we figured it was going to be pretty dead. It was November after all, so it was cold up there. We had 3 days planned for the trip, and there were 4 chaperones. They weren't really following us at all times. We just had to tell them what activities we'd be going to do. The first day was fun. Ethan and I, along with 2 girls who we were friends with, did some go-karting, rock climbing, went in the pool, and then we went to eat dinner. After dinner, we went back to our room and just hung out for a while. For the record, not all of us students were able to get rooms next to each other. The room was ground level, and there was a clear sliding door that provided a view of the lake down the hill. We went back out for a while, then came back to the room at about 10 o'clock. We left the blinds to the door open because the moon was giving off a cool reflection on the lake down below. Little did we know that would be the start of a nightmare. If I had to guess, I would say it was a whole hour of us just rolling around in both of our beds, trying to get comfortable, occasionally talking before. Ethan, whose bed was closer to the door, screamed. I had no idea what was going on, why he could have been screaming, or if it was a joke until I looked at the door. It was a sight from a horror movie. There was a really tall, skinny older woman with long grayish hair standing on the other side of the door, with her hands cupped up against the glass next to her face as if she were trying to better see into the room. The woman then walked away. Ethan looked at me, I guess waiting for me to get up so he would have the confidence to get up as well and run outside after her. When we did, we didn't see her anywhere, though the cement trail that ran past each and every room of the building was void of any people. There was nobody on the surrounding grass nor anyone walking down the hill. We both saw the woman, though, so we knew we weren't seeing things. The next day, we didn't tell any of the chaperones, but we told the 2 girls who we were friends with. Night came once again. After a long day of many activities, we entered the room through the back door and made sure to shut the blinds this time. Ethan fell asleep before me. I fell asleep around half an hour after him. I woke up to silence. I couldn't tell if something had woken me up or not. All I knew was that I didn't feel right. I sat up and whispered Ethan's name to see if he was awake. He didn't answer, so I turned to the left out of pure instinct and curiosity to look at him. But I couldn't see him. Something was blocking my view of the other bed. I looked up, and towering over my bed was the tall old woman. She took 2 steps back as she said, "Your back door was unlocked," before turning around and walking outside. I was frozen in that bed except for my shaking. I woke Ethan and told him what happened. We locked the back door, shut the blinds once again, and agreed to stay up the rest of the night. It was already 4 in the morning, so we wouldn't be losing much sleep. By 8 o'clock, we went to the dining hall to eat breakfast. When we got back to our room building, ready to tell our chaperones, we could see the old woman through the glass of the neighboring room. She was sitting on the bed, hands folded, sitting up straight, facing the door, facing us. We ran to the front desk in the lobby building to report her to the staff instead of the chaperones. It was weird. None of them really knew what to do in the situation. Eventually, we persuaded them to come to the woman's room with us. There, they found the woman sitting in the same position, along with an older man sitting on the other bed, looking up at them as they entered. Apparently, the woman had some kind of mental disorder, but the man wasn't all there either. There was something very off-putting about him, and they just weren't the kinds of people that you'd expect to see at a family-friendly resort. The staff wouldn't kick the 2 out like we hoped, though, so we told our chaperones. Long story short, after a lot of arguing between chaperones and staff, we had to end the trip early, and we all went home. Me and Ethan were just happy to get out of there. When I was in the 4th grade, my class took a field trip to a rural zoo type place about an hour away from our school. I remember vividly it was a cloudy day with the occasional raindrop or 2 falling. The zoo was kind of small, but it was kid-friendly. It had a decent amount of habitats, mostly smaller animals, though nothing exotic. There was also a big building as part of the zoo where taxidermied animals were put on display, along with other interesting attractions that I don't really remember. Admittedly, I was kind of off in my elementary and middle school years. I would do weird, antisocial things, and my teachers and my mom would pick up on it. For whatever reason, when we were touring the building as a group, I decided to walk into one of the bathrooms without telling any of the teachers. I did my business, washed my hands, and entered back out into the hallway. Nobody was around. I walked down one of the hallways we hadn't crossed yet. I still vividly remember the dim, moody lighting and the scarlet-red carpets of the hallways. My 8-year-old imagination was going wild as I witnessed all the stiff, lifeless animals that were once alive. It was supposed to be a fun school trip. Our high school had planned a weekend retreat at an old lodge deep in the woods of Vermont. The place was ancient, built in the late 1800s, and had once served as a hunting lodge before being converted into a guest house. Our group of 20 students and 4 chaperones arrived on a chilly Friday evening. The trees surrounding the lodge were tall and lifeless, their leafless branches clawing at the dark sky. My best friend, Jason, and I were assigned a room on the second floor, right at the end of a long, dimly lit hallway. The floorboards creaked under every step, and the walls were lined with old, faded paintings of people whose eyes seemed to follow us. The moment we stepped inside, I felt an overwhelming sense of unease. Something was wrong with this place. The first night passed without incident, but the next day, things began to get strange. A few of the girls claimed they heard whispering outside their rooms at night. One of our classmates, Matt, woke up with scratches on his arms, though he swore he hadn't done it himself. The lodge staff dismissed it as nonsense, saying that the place had been standing for over a century and creaky noises were normal. That evening, after dinner, Jason and I wandered around the lodge with a few others. We came across a locked door at the end of the hallway on the 3rd floor. One of the chaperones, Mr. Reynolds, saw us and quickly ushered us away, warning us not to go near it. His reaction made us more curious. Later that night, Jason convinced me to sneak up there. The hallways were eerily silent as we tiptoed toward the forbidden door. When we reached it, Jason tried the knob, and to our surprise, it turned. The door creaked open to reveal a dark, dusty room with a single rocking chair in the center. As we stepped inside, the temperature dropped noticeably. The air smelled of damp wood and something rotten. Then the rocking chair moved. Jason and I froze, watching in horror as the chair rocked back and forth. A cold breath of air passed between us, and a barely audible whisper filled the room. We bolted out, slamming the door behind us and running back to our room. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 3 a.m., I heard the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps in the hallway. They stopped right outside our door. Jason was already sitting up in his bed, staring at the door with wide eyes. The doorknob rattled, and then, unmistakably, we heard breathing, deep, raspy breathing. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, pointing it toward the door. The moment the light hit it, the rattling stopped. Jason jumped up and turned on the room's light, and for a moment, silence filled the air. Then, a single knock echoed through the wood. The next morning, we found out that another student, Lisa, had seen a figure standing at the end of the hallway that night. She described it as a tall, shadowy figure with hollow eyes. We told the chaperones, but they brushed it off as paranoia. On the final night, things escalated. Around midnight, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the lodge. It was Matt. We rushed to his room and found him curled in a corner, eyes filled with terror. He kept repeating the same words. "She's in the walls. She's in the walls." That was enough for the teachers. The trip was cut short, and we left at dawn. As we drove away, I looked back at the lodge. In one of the top-floor windows, I swear I saw a figure watching us leave. None of us ever spoke of that trip again, but sometimes, in the dead of night, I still hear the whispering.